Let me begin with a hard truth I often share in closed-door strategy sessions. Most businesses don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they ask outdated questions. Strategy is not about predicting the future perfectly, it's about preparing intelligently. Over the years, while consulting with growing companies, legacy family businesses, and ambitious founders, I've noticed a pattern. The companies that reinvented themselves didn't have better answers. They asked better questions. Here are 10 strategic questions that can fundamentally shift how you think about your business and what you can do about them now. Question number 1. Where is my industry headed? This is not a trend question. It's a trajectory question. Many leaders track quarterly numbers but ignore directional momentum. In one consulting engagement with a mid-sized manufacturing firm, revenues were stable, margins acceptable, but growth had plateaued. When we zoomed out, one insight became clear. The industry wasn't shrinking, but value was migrating from products to solutions, from ownership to usage. HBR research consistently reminds us industries don't disappear, business models do. So what can we do about it? Stop asking, how do we grow? Start asking, where is value moving? Then follow the value, not the volume. If you don't know where your industry is headed, you're driving by looking at the rearview mirror. Question number 2. What is fundamentally changing in my industry? This question separates surface change from structural change. Technology is rarely the real disruption. The real disruption is behavioral. It is customer experience. In retail, for example, the disruption wasn't e-commerce. It was the customer's expectation of convenience, choice, and speed. I once worked with a services company that blamed technology for declining margins. The real issue? Customers had changed how they evaluated value. They were no longer comparing providers. They were comparing experiences. What's the learning here? Identify what customers are doing differently, not what competitors are doing differently. When customer behavior changes, everything else is commentary. 3. What technological and business model disruptions are already underway? Most disruptions don't arrive dramatically. They arrive quietly, then suddenly feel inevitable. Think of subscription models, platform ecosystems, freemium pricing, AI-enabled services. In one turnaround project with a professional services firm, the leadership believed AI was 5 years away. In reality, smaller competitors were already using automation to deliver faster, cheaper, and more consistent outcomes. HBR calls this the illusion of time. Leaders believe they have more time than they actually do. What you needed to do is to map technologies not by hype, but by impact on cost, speed, and scalability. Here's a fact. Disruption doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't wait for readiness. Question 4. If we were to redesign the business from scratch, how different would it look? This is a dangerous but liberating question. In strategy workshops, when I ask leadership teams to imagine starting today with no legacy constraints, the silence is telling. Processes disappear, hierarchies flatten, offerings simplify. Why? Because legacy systems often exist to protect history, not customers. One company I advised realized that 40% of its processes existed only because that's how it started. When redesigned, operational costs dropped significantly. So what can you do about it? Run a blank sheet exercise right from the scratch. Use first principle thinking. Bottom line, design for today's customer, not yesterday's success. Think of it this way. If your business were born today, would it look anything like it does now? 5. What new forces of competition can outdo my business? Michael Porter taught us to look at competition broadly, not just rivals. Today, competition comes from startups with no overhead, platforms that aggregate value, customers who build alternatives, partners who become competitors. In one case, a distributor I consulted lost relevance not to another distributor, but to customers buying directly from manufacturers online. Do this simple exercise. Revisit Porter's 5 forces with a modern lens, especially substitutes and new entrants. Your biggest competitor may not look like you and may not be from your industry, and that's the danger. 6. Which of our strengths is becoming irrelevant? This is one of the most uncomfortable questions because strengths are emotional, they are tied to identity. I once worked with a founder whose pride was operational efficiency, but customers had moved on. They valued customization over speed. HBR refers to this as core rigidities, strengths that turn into weaknesses when the environment changes. This is what you need to do. Audit your business strengths through the customer's eyes, not your own. The truth is that what made you successful yesterday may quietly sabotage you tomorrow. 7. What new customer expectations are we failing to meet? Customers rarely announce dissatisfaction. They simply leave. In a consulting engagement with a B2B company, churn was rising despite competitive pricing. The real issue: customers expected proactive insights, not reactive service. Today's customers expect transparency, speed, personalization, simplicity, and hassle-free experience. They want things better, cheaper, and faster. As a business owner, you must map the customer journey and identify moments of friction, delay, or disappointment. Map out the complete customer experience and look out for ways to improve them. Always remember, customers don't compare you to competitors. They compare you to the best experience they've ever had, period. 8th strategic question: what is my competition doing differently as a growth engine? Growth rarely comes from doing more of the same. It comes from doing something structurally different. I've seen competitors grow not because they had better products, but because they built ecosystems, created communities, shifted pricing logic, and leveraged data better. In one turnaround story, a company stopped chasing market share and instead built a niche leadership position in one particular segment, and profitability followed. The blue ocean strategy paid off. What you need to do is study your competitors not for features, but for growth logic. For businesses, growth is a system in place, and it's not a one-time tactic. 9. What is the one thing we must stop doing now? Strategy is as much about subtraction as addition. Peter Drucker famously said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." In several consulting assignments, the biggest breakthrough came not from new initiatives, but from stopping low-impact activities. Most business waste their time and energy on minor things, and that takes away their focus from the majors. Steve Jobs famously said, "To focus means to say no." You need to say no to many things so that you can focus on the most important things in your business. Here is your task. Identify the one activity consuming disproportionate resources with minimal strategic return. Remember, what you stop doing often matters more than what you start. 10th strategic question: what is the one thing we could do that makes us the only one? This is the question of strategic uniqueness. Not better, not cheaper, but different. In every successful reinvention I've seen, there was one bold move, a distinctive choice competitors couldn't or wouldn't copy. Whether it was a radical service promise, a unique pricing model, or a distinctive customer experience, ask, what would make us unmistakably different, even if it scares us? Always remember this about strategy. The goal of strategy is not to win the race, it's to change the game. These questions are not meant to be answered once. They are meant to be lived with. The future doesn't belong to the biggest companies. It belongs to the most question-driven ones. Because in business, as in life, the quality of your future is determined by the quality of the questions you dare to ask today.